everybody. Welcome in. The transfer portal is open. Happy New Year. For all the good and all the bad, a little bit of both, that was to be expected, and we are getting what we expected so far. There's still a lot that is going to happen with the shape of the roster over the next couple hours and next couple days, but here we are to talk about it. The fluid situation with Michigan football, no rest for the weary. I mean, it's a big time flux. We knew that, but Kyle Whittingham rounding out his staff. You got the coordinators in place. Pretty much everyone got to make a few things official with a couple of the position coaches to see if, there's going to be some movement there, whether there's going to be an analyst here, shared duties, but it's pretty close. Whittingham said during the bowl game on the broadcast that he was 90% with the staff, and he put it a little bit higher now. So just waiting for some of those, official titles. Things are expected, and then we'll find out. If there's a shock, I don't know if you we're going to be shocked. I'm not sure I was going to be shocked at anybody going into the transfer portal or shocked if Michigan was going to be able to get it. Now, the quarterback position is one that we all focus on and talk about so much, and we didn't even know that. We still don't know. A lot of people think, yes, no, the Whittingham, the way he's talked about Underwood, Michigan has already made the offer, and Underwood is already accepted. I don't know that. Maybe we'll have to hear it officially. It's going to kind of play out. It's the same thing with a player like Andrew Marsh. A lot of people were expecting that, Marsh was going to be out, but his name is not in there yet. And of course you could put your name in and you could still come back, but you would expect if it was in that you would end up leaving. I just got off a call. A friend of mine was talking to his buddies in Salt Lake and saying, look at the transfer portal here. You got two of these guys that are coming in, and go ahead and look at BYU and, who's going there. It's taking shape in with what we had here. People that want to know specifically about like the offensive line coach, Harding. Harding, I believe, is in. So he's going to be the offensive line coach. So if that's something that you wanted and excites you, there you go. I'm not saying that you shouldn't get excited. If you like a particular coach and you look at his background and his resume and you say, oh, he'll do wonders in Ann Arbor, you should be excited about it. I'm not taking a cautious approach or a wait and see approach. I'm looking at it, and I'm starting with Whittingham, and I felt the biggest thing for Kyle Whittingham and his assistants is how he is going to do over these next couple days with the players that he's able to keep and the players that he's able to bring in. I know there were a lot of people that half expected to wake up today and see half of the football team in the transfer portal. That hasn't materialized. I don't know. That wouldn't have been shocking when you have total turnover, almost total turnover. It looks like Michigan's keeping Tony Alford, and it looks like Lou Esposito and maybe the special teams coach that was just hired who coached in the bowl game, Combs. But we'll have to wait and see. That is not just yet official. So that's where we're at when it comes down to the staff. And for me, when people want to know about Whittingham and how Michigan did getting Whittingham, I think they did all right. I want to see how these next couple of days, fall into place to see. But, getting excited in the off season, half of it, I'm getting a text 7 in the BYU portal. including a quarterback. Utah's got 10 guys in there. So, yeah, how they pick and choose the guys that are coming in here and how this shapes up. Getting back to what I was going to say at the beginning, I wasn't shocked really with anybody's name that would be in there, even the biggest names. But Cole Sullivan was a name that went in there that I'll put in the a little bit of the shock, except that you've got the new defensive coordinator Hill, who's putting two linebackers out there. Maybe not a scheme fit for Cole Sullivan. There's some people that are really in. The people affectionately, go by tape bro, or just knowing the X's and O's. That's their thing, and it's not a bad thing, to know what's going on with the schemes and everything else. And maybe to me, it looked like, oh, maybe he's not a scheme fit. I say that because you might be, no, absolutely, he could be a scheme fit. Yeah, I feel like anybody, if you have a very talented player, you could find him. But, that was my first thought, maybe not yours, but that's what I thought about with Sullivan. But since then, Elijah Dotson, who's out of Belleville, who I spoke with on signing day last year or whatever it was, I liked him. I liked his the attitude. I thought he was going to be a good player, if he stuck around. He's out. Jasper Parker, the running back, he's in the portal. And so Strayhorn has just jumped in there. So, not an onslaught half the team, but, players, slowly or surely or whatever you want to say, going into the transfer portal. So we wait and see how that ends up shaking out. It's exciting to a lot of people to just sit back and say, okay, they're in. How are they going to get, just pulling them left and right, kind of waiting. I'm not, seeing how the dust settles here when it comes down to the portal and who's in and who's out. And it's all going to be, to me, how I feel about Whittingham and how his staff might be able to do next year to see who they're able to get. So, that's it when it comes to the portal and also the Michigan staff. So I think that when you have players, people are naming guys that just jumped in. Like, I didn't know Zeke Berry was in the transfer portal, and Rick saying that just happened. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to confirm every single thing that comes down here looking at the transfer portal, but that in fact looks correct, that Berry is heading in there. He's not going to be the last one, so that's where we're going to be when it comes down to it. Let's go. I'm getting a text. All the Michigan guys so far are mostly easily replaced, according to my insider that I'm texting back and forth with right now, who's pretty bullish on the Whittingham hire, and also that the players that are out there that Michigan will be able to get. This is different. This is nothing like football that I grew up with. This was nothing like football from 5 years ago. It's you get to this day and you take a quarter of the team and you just draw names out of a hat and they're all going to be gone. And then, so you're bringing in, you're going to lose a dozen guys and then you're going to bring in a dozen guys, add in, you get a new coaching staff with everything that went on. And so that number, I don't know what the number is going to ultimately end up being about guys heading out, but it's double figures, whatever it is. I don't want to shock anybody, sound like Biff Poggi and start saying, oh, there'll be 12, 20 guys in there, half the team. And everybody, you're some blank hole, talking about you're sending them out. This is reality now. Scheme, coaches, fit, who recruited you, who you're talking to. I mean, it's an open invitation to go anywhere you want. Nobody knows any of these guys that are coming in. Look, I got somebody that was telling me today that I was talking to. He said, he came up to me and said, "What do you think of the Utah Wolverines?" And I thought, oh, that was funny. And then someone else heard us talking, and then they were just, he said that he was on, I don't know where he was at, somewhere. Reddit, I think, and they said, "Oh, there's some great jokes on there. Michigan's raiding the tabernacle," and he said that it's not the Michigan Mafia anymore; it's the Mormon Mafia, and so those jokes are all going to be there, and they have got a little bit of humor to them. I laughed a little bit here. I'm repeating them, so there it is. I'm going to go through. I want to see what's on Michigan fans' minds. There's so much. There's so many thoughts that are bouncing around my head. I feel like I'm having a hard time executing what I wanted to tell everybody and what I wanted. So let me just go back and slow down, and then I'll take the feedback. And that with this portal, it's watching it, and it's a live breathing entity, and it's sucking guys up and it's spitting them out, and what Michigan's doing behind the scenes and who they're going to get. You liked recruiting, following recruiting with Michigan football, and then you had the transfer portal is recruiting on steroids. You get a transfer portal in 2026 with a coaching change, and I don't even know what it is. It's exponentially on steroids now with what we have here. So it's going to change every 5 minutes, and that's how it goes. Now the staff is rounding into shape, and so the Mormon Mafia, we're going to wait and see who they're able to attract and what they're able to bring in. And these guys have pretty decent resumes and have been around the block in Salt Lake and Utah. That's different than the Midwest, but hey, what's most important? They always say relationships. Relationships are going to be the most important thing in recruiting. I believe that relationships are important. I also believe with the modern football, you have the university. Michigan still. I saw somebody today on the Maize and Blue Review say that Michigan recruits itself. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. Now, if I was, I don't know, some kind of recruiting coordinator calling, would it be as easy as just saying, "Hey, it's Michigan," and just throw down the scholarship? I guess you're not even doing that anymore. Saying it's Michigan, come on in. It's not that easy, but man, it gets you in the door. It certainly is going to have people's attention. You have 10 schools, whoever you are, and the 11th one comes in and says, "Hey, it's Michigan." You're going to take the call. They have that. So they've got that going for them. The money part, which was something that, previous to 2 or 3 years ago, Michigan wasn't participating in. Now they are, and now you can. It is, I think it's the number one thing. The money is the number one thing. You might not like that, hearing that. If you're a college football fan, you could say, "Oh, this is ruining the sport I love." And you might be right about that. But it's not about, and I know you hate hearing this. It's not about, getting the degree of going to school, your teammate. It's not really about that. It's about how much money can you get? And that's what it is when I watch and when I see free agency and all the professional sports. There's sometimes guys will chase a championship. They've already have been able to accumulate all of their money, but almost in every single instance, players go where they get the most money. So, money is number one. Being Michigan, and Michigan has money, so they got money in Michigan going together. Then you get to the other stuff, chance at playing time, a chance to win. I don't know, Michigan's got a lot of that going for them. So without even knowing the dynamic of the staff, what their relationships for, what they're looking for, it's Michigan. They have money, they have playing time, and they've got a chance to win something. If excuse me, if Indiana could go out there and change things around in 2 years, anybody can. So that's a little bit scary. Maybe if you're a Michigan fan, it's also very exciting. And I think it should be more exciting because you've got a new coach and you've got everything. There's nothing stopping Michigan from being in the mix, staying in the mix, and competing for a national championship, certainly playoffs, as soon as next year. So that's where I'm sitting right now. D Originals talking about Samaj transferring. He says he's shocked. No, he's not. Nobody is shocked about Samaj. I will follow Samaj Morgan's career, and hell, I hope he ends up at Eastern Michigan. Maybe he's thinking something bigger than that. And good luck to him. Chiron is saying most guys are going to give Whittingham a year. You'll see more transfers next year if they don't like the direction. I think that's that sounds correct to me. Or so sure, you can always bounce, but if you're at Michigan and you've liked, you got to take the coaching staff, the old coaching staff, and just put it all over here. But you like the university. Of course, the football program speaks for itself. So you're bringing the new guys in and you're giving them a shot. Some of them are bouncing immediately, but most guys are going to give Whittingham a year. Yeah, that leaves us enough wiggle room where you say most guys, but I think that's true. Yeah, we've already mentioned Harding. Looks like people are answering the questions of people that have questions. Mars saying, "Where have you been? Harding has been hired since yesterday." Hey, I know that was a long time ago, but not everybody. I know. I think most people that watch podcasts, they want and listen to podcasts. It's, that's it. Harding's old news. Who's hitting the portal right now? This is just, it's happening. JMFD says Sullivan is the one you should really try to get back. Didn't he have a forced fumble in the bowl game? And he's always around the ball. He's always making plays. Yeah, he looked like, when he was coming in, I thought he looked like, he's from the Pittsburgh area, like the Steelers and everything. And he reminded me of TJ Watt. And everything since I've seen him, he continues to remind me of TJ Watt. And yeah, I would like TJ Watt, Cole Sullivan, to be back with Michigan. So, that one hurts. Yeah, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Dole talking great hire when it comes to the offensive line. D Original is talking about the need for a linebacker in the portal. We have no linebackers that have experience if Sullivan leaves. Yeah, well, Rolder could be back, right? So there's a chance for him. Bowles, you're talking about the experience. He played a little bit. But yeah, I hear you. And but they do like both Chase Taylor and NOB. But those guys are young, but you are correct about overall experience. Dave saying Sullivan should stay. He's a good fit for a well-coached, disciplined team. Is he a good fit in the scheme? I think that's the one where you have to go through. Yeah, look, John Henry Daly. I've got this text coming out. He's the guy with the Achilles on the defensive line. I would say that he looks good for Michigan. Is he going to be someone that's ready to go by the start of the season? You like him. You're going to take a shot. Thanks, Vi Kent. It's fun. Yeah, so we're all in agreement with Sullivan. Love him as a player. Sky's the limit. Guy's going to be an NFL. He looks like he could be a first-round pick. You want playmakers that look like they're going to be first-round picks to stay on your team. So, yeah, you don't just want to say good luck. Andy is saying Sully is making the minimum, and he's looking for a raise. Yeah, I don't know the particulars. Those numbers are not released. I know On3 has their own numbers that they put down for how much a guy might be worth in terms of his NIL, the projections. I'm not saying that I don't know how they arrive at those. If there's a team of people, if there's just one person that's throwing out the projection here. I don't even know what the minimum is for a player. So when you say that, Andy, I don't know where you get your information from. I would have thought that he would have been due for a pretty big raise considering what I have just said about him. So, but you could be right. It could be a total money play. When I saw it, I thought it was scheme. And Zeke Berry, there's going to be some guys. I like Zeke Berry. DB says Strayhorn didn't look great in the bowl game. Wishing him the best, though. Well, he had a play or two that I looked at that I thought he stood out. But, yeah, he's just getting his first run in the bowl game over at right guard. So I didn't see how he graded out. And it's always tough, after a bowl game. It's especially tough if you're sitting around, I don't know, like at a party or, watching a game with a bunch of other people, maybe drinking. I wasn't doing any of those things. I was just watching the game and actually keeping my notes on it. But having said all of that, you could say right after the game, I did not go back and rewatch the Citrus Bowl and say, well, Strayhorn didn't look that good. Yeah, okay. I saw a couple plays where he looked all right. Mar is talking about Alex Whittingham from the Chiefs and Iowa's linebacker coach. Yeah, the Iowa linebacker coach, because of the kind of linebackers that Iowa traditionally churns out. It's almost like saying, get the tight end coach from Iowa and be like, oh, okay, that sounds good to me. I don't think that the Iowa linebacker coach is coming. I do think Whittingham is. I don't know if they've made that totally official yet. I saw Trevor McHugh from the Maize and Blue Review, the senior editor. Let's see how he deemed the linebacker coach, Alex Whittingham. He says it's expected. They're expected to hire Alex Whittingham. He will be the third Whittingham who will be on the staff. You got Kyle, you've got Freddie, who might not be part of the 10 coaches. He could be an analyst working with the tight ends. We're going to have to see how that actually shakes out. Those are still some of the things, the final touches that need to be put on the staff. But Alex would be coming in and would be part of the staff. Dave says Zeke Berry is overrated. Well, he was a starting corner for Michigan with some experience. I never heard anybody talk about he's the greatest cover corner or he's some blanket and, he's going to be all conference or something, but it's a loss. But could they replace him? Yeah. You know, one thing I don't know, like I say I like to do. I'll have an opinion on every single player. It seems to be, and I'm not saying you're doing this, Dave, because overrated towards what? That he's just a starter. Or he shouldn't be a starter. He made some plays here or there. And he got burned on some. So knocking guys that leave, like, oh, he sucked anyways. Oh, he was overrated. I don't know. If he came back, there'd be like, oh, Barry's, look at all the experience he's got. So I don't know. Do I think that he could have been a cornerback too for Michigan? Yeah. Yeah, on a team that could make the college football playoffs? Yeah. So calling him overrated to me is a little bit it's on the day they hit the transfer portal and you've got somebody slip through your fingers. He was a decent player. I'm not talking star player. Hey, you want more than a decent player at cornerback too? I get it. Rico doesn't want to be Utah East. Well, yeah, I don't know anything about Utah. Very little. Out of all of the states, we get to Utah and maybe Wyoming, the Dakotas. About it. Leet says he doesn't see anything about Zeke. I saw something about it. It looked like that was true. Zeke here's Ripstar. This is what we've been waiting for. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. What'd the spread look like, Rip? What did you do on New Year's Eve? Well, you're watching Michigan, and then what? You watched Ohio State? Did you get some hot wings going? Let's hear it. Yeah, Barry. I'm still the bowl game was quite the experience. I was pretty entertained by the Citrus Bowl for 3 quarters. Then I was not very entertained. But for 3 quarters, there was a lot to like. There was a lot to like from Underwood. There was a lot to like from the Michigan offense. There were a few things I know, the way Arch was running around and the Michigan defense wasn't able to get him on the ground. But Arch just looked through 3 quarters. I was thinking, Arch is a little bit better runner than Bryce, but Bryce, I think, is a little bit better passer than Arch. And then Arch went out there and threw the 30-yarder and then, ran for the 60-yarder. And then it went completely whoop. Bryce started throwing the ball to the burnt orange. So that's it. Is this true? Go Blue Brian says college football is so broken. Yeah, I don't feel that way, but there's a lot of people that feel just like you. I do think that if you are, I'm not saying you're a naysayer or like to complain, maybe you are. But if you are somebody who is in that category, you like to bitch, you like to complain, you just it's true. I mean, you can just make a case for it. But I don't think it is. I'll just go back to yesterday. I watched Oregon and Texas Tech. Texas Tech is, thrown their all the oil money in there. I hadn't heard really of anybody on their team. A couple. But I watched them play. They got a hell of a defense. Oregon had a hell of a defense, and Oregon's always been, or they at least for the last decade or so, they've been around. That was a hell of a game. Indiana. This is the modern football, and you're talking about college football is so broken. I think having Indiana look like they're the Oklahoma from the 50s or 60s or something. It's good. it's good for the game. If you're somebody that's always just want the same 10 or 15 teams, I get that. You could say this feels a little broken. Or the guys that have money and the guys taking off and that is distasteful for you. That's understandable because the money's flying around. The money would fly around before. It just flew under the radar. Guys were getting paid left and right, not as much money, but they were getting it under the table. And everybody was like, I love football. It's pretty awesome. But now it's all out in the open. So that's broken. And, the coaches, you get Lane Kiffins and all, this has always been going on. Guys are already have committed elsewhere and they're coaching their team. And they get all pissed off at the reporters. Oh, I'm not answering that. They get all, and now so the players are doing it. It is extreme. I'll give you that. It's way different. And I still had to adjust. I'm watching IU yesterday. And they are hitting like a Mack truck. Mendoza, who's a little, I'd never heard Mendoza speak before. And then I watched him for the 5 minutes on the field after the Rose Bowl. And I thought, this guy's different. And he looked great. The receivers looked great. The way that they hit and ran the ball, they took Alabama in a heavyweight fight and they knocked them out repeatedly. What is it at the one point in the third quarter that Herb Street said, look at Alabama. They got their hands on their hips. They're whooped. He might not have said whooped, but he did talk about their hands on their hips. They are stunned. This doesn't look like the Crimson Tide. And physically, Indiana strangled them. And with the talent that they have, I mean, that was something else. So I think having Indiana and Texas Tech, I mean, this is the marquee day of the college football playoff. I was pretty entertained. And if Go Blue Brian, the Trinidad kid from Ferris, watching him, woo, no looking passes. I'm sure Bryce was watching that going, that's the kind of player I am. I don't know. Get to him a little bit more. But so I liked all of those games, and I don't think it's broken. I'm not telling you it's the greatest thing ever, but it's, it's never been the greatest thing ever. And it sucked a lot more back in the day. And again, I think people that like to argue, they liked it. I had a friend when you didn't even get a champion. You'd have Michigan playing whoever the Pac-10 back then, whoever their champ was, they would play in the Rose Bowl. And then they would have the voters and say, oh, well, they're the national champs. No, that was trash. Complete trash. But I had a friend saying, oh, that's the charm of college football. That, we can argue about it all the time. No, nonsense. Then they had the 2, which was better than none. And then the 4, which was better than 2. I don't know. It's taken me a little time because they want everything. They still want all these bowl trips. They want to soak the fans for all they can on these junkets and everything to all the different bowl games. And then they still want the playoff games. And it's hard to get your head around as a fan. They need to get all the bowl games done and then have the playoffs. Could you imagine the pros? The Lions are done, but they'll be, let's say they had playoff games and, the Lions are playing in the Mackinac Fudge Bowl game against what? In this game, but then afterwards, we got a playoff game. So, yeah, it's not all the great. Yeah, I was telling people, hey, you don't have to make fun of the guys that are leaving or act like, but Samaj deserves a little bit of he does deserve a little bit. He was a disaster. And Sharon Moore was a disaster. and this is not kicking a man when he's completely down. You can go back and watch some of the podcasts when everybody was still putting him out continuously on at punt returner was one of the most ridiculous things. Now it doesn't seem like it. Well, the as bad decisions go for Sharon Moore, I didn't even make the top 10. Oh, if I only knew about his decision making. Good afternoon. Here he is, Bluebeard. Are you wearing that same? Hey, you got that Wink Martindale hat you're wearing from the bowl game? Woo! That the new Michigan? Mar taking a shot at Zeke. Woo, here we go. More from Leet. They will fill the spots. I am not worried about that part. Players bailing is weird, though, but I guess I should be used to it by now. That is the essence of what we're doing here today, Leet. You're right. Coaches come, there'll be somebody else that fills it up. Places like Michigan, they'll have pretty good resumes. Whittingham, 21 years at Utah, knows what he's doing. Say this isn't his first rodeo, that they have rodeo. If it feels like Utah, there are a bunch of rodeos. It's not his first rodeo. I'm not worried about him filling up players either. They should be able to bring tons. It's Michigan, and they got a lot of cash, and I got playing time, so I'm not worried about that either. But it is weird to see guys peacing out. Here's the part. I guess I should be used to it by now. I was watching Indiana. I was watching Sig on the field after the game, talking about Indiana, we're great. And it's still, I'm not used to it. They've been doing it all year long. I went out to Oregon and won. Nobody thought they were going to. It took Alabama and crumpled them up like a dirty dish rag and smacked them on the ground. We should be used to them by now, too, and I'm not. Go Blue Brian wondering if that BYU safety entered the portal. He'd be a massive upgrade over Barry. Oh, the one with the that talked about what a great hire Jay Hill would be? That, I don't know. My friend has been texting me about BYU. Falito Satuala. I'd actually write that one down. Satuala would be somebody that would look great in the maize and blue. If they lose Sullivan, I'll be on the, not that Satuala is a linebacker, but he is a safety, but he's Satuala. That would be one. I don't know. I'm not sure I would make the trade 1-for-1, but it's not really like that. You get a player but then you're going to get one coming in that you like. Dave wants to know, why would guys who tolerated 2 years of Sharon's clown show leave now? For a variety of reasons. Because it was a clown show, because they felt like, and for a lot of them, I could understand this, that, they were betrayed. You could say they weren't betrayed by Michigan. It was just Sharon, but, you could feel like you were betrayed by, the university. We could come up with 10 probably reasons. Sharon being a clown show would be one that I could understand people would want to leave, that felt betrayed by him, the staff, the team, the program, the university. That's why. Money, playing time. And the other part is that you just can. You are obligated. You were sold a bill of goods. You felt like, this is family. These guys care for me. And then Sharon lit that all on fire. And you're standing there and you got other people calling saying, hey, you know what? We really like you. We're not going to have our coach, so that's why. I mean, you know that. I feel like a little bit of a setup for me. Eric talking about Dotson. He says he's going to find out his market value is flat or low. Sullivan, just the opposite. Well, Sullivan is going to have a robust market. We don't need to be tape hounds or anything else to know that Cole Sullivan's a hell of a player, and there's going to be no shortage of suitors for him. Who knows with Dotson? Who knows who was recruiting him in high school? Who knows what he was promised there? And who knows, Lamar Morgan, who he really liked and was fond of, his position coach, he's not the coach anymore. A lot of these guys, when it comes down, sure, the head coach, but all these guys' position coaches are going too. And a lot of times when you follow recruiting, these guys, it's the position coach. And now they're all gone. Besides Alford and maybe Espo and Carey, Sean Puffy Combs. But I don't know, when it comes to Combs, these guys, he's just been here for a minute. JC reminding everybody that not everyone entering the portal is leaving. Some of them are just trying to create leverage for a better NIL deal. That's true. But it does feel like they're leaving. But you're right. It's a little bit like when you trade a pitcher at the deadline who's going to be a free agent the following year, and everybody says, well, you just re-sign him. Go ahead, get rid of it. But infrequently it happens. Now, it did happen with the Tigers. They were able to re-sign one of their pitchers that they just did with that recently. JW says, so weren't you on 97.1 back in the day? You miss it. I was back in the day. It's, been almost 6 years, but that's, back in the day. I was there for almost 14 years. 11 years before that in Ann Arbor. But podcasting, I got to say, podcasting is where it's at. It's fun. Go Blue Brian again, talking about the broken state of college football. He said it has to change. It's broken in its current state. Is it broke? I mean, it was broke. I'm going to have to go back. You're just setting me up again. Yes, it has to change, but it's not broken. There's always a bunch of stuff to look at. I know you'd rather have all the money being, on the black market instead of out in the open. That doesn't mean it's broken. That guys can move around, and with the transfer portal, coaches can do it. Why can't the players? Boom, peace out. That they can leave and just, every year be with a different team. I get that's a little weird. Adios, Strayhorn. Marlon Klein entering the NFL draft. Rip. Klein is best on the bench. Yeah, he didn't have a good Citrus Bowl. He dropped that touchdown. Yeah, I wanted more from Klein. Good blocker. I mean, so you want somebody that can block. You go with Klein. Ooh, we got to trade. I would trade Strayhorn and Berry for JHD if we get him. John Henry Daly is an outstanding defensive lineman from Utah who's in the transfer portal. I would make that trade too. The only thing with Daly is that he's got an Achilles. Will he be ready to go? I know I saw some of the internet dudes that, throw out like, he's going here, he's going there. The saying Daly's, he'll be recovered in the spring. And I was thinking, that didn't really. He's going to be hopefully, that'd be great. And if I had to guess without sitting here talking with him or really looking what our experts say at the Maize and Blue Review, because Daly was at Utah and Whittingham, and I think he's coming too. He's in the transfer portal. I don't know why I have to yell about that. Let me try it again. Take two. I think that John Henry Daly will ultimately end up in Ann Arbor. Jimbo says it's all about the money. They're not leaving because they don't know the coach. Hell, if they go somewhere else, they're not going to know that coach either. Keep it real. Yeah, well, Jimbo, if you go back to what I was saying, I said in all of college football, the university, the tradition, the coaches, the number one thing is money. That's number one. So you work from there. So when you're saying you keep it real, I thought I have been keeping it real. But a lot of times the money is pretty close. I don't even know if I could come up with it. If Cole Sullivan, let's call Cole Sullivan from Pittsburgh. If Penn State was offering Cole Sullivan $900,000 and Michigan was offering him, $900, and Penn State said, well, we'll give you $950. And then he came back. I don't know. That's pretty similar, but there's always a little bit. You make your decision. Playing time, familiar, the coaches, your relationship with the coaches, how you feel about the place that you're at. Some people always think, no, I'm sorry. Let me start that again. Some people feel like the grass is always greener somewhere else. And I don't want to sound like Biff Poggi and, slamming Michigan or anything. They get enough of negative attention. But what happened here in the last couple months, I can understand how somebody could look and say, this is a pretty, I'm out. I'm looking for something else. I can understand it. No truth to the rumor that Samaj dropped his pen when he was, trying to write on the computer that he was hitting the transfer portal, that he pushed the wrong button. The New Life says he thinks there's going to be a harsh reality for these defensive players. No one on that side of the ball were standouts. Well, Derek Moore was definitely a standout. I thought that Rayshawn Benny was definitely a standout. There were a couple games that both of the transfer portal guys, Damon Payne, had a game or two in there. I like Trey Williams. I thought he played well this year. Jimmy Rolder had a great game late in the season. Barham early in the season had one or two, but he ended up being, I think, disappointing. Houseman was pretty solid until he had his issues. What about the secondary? Rod Moore was hurt. Yeah, Shug and Zeke Berry, Mason Curtis made a play or two. There's like you have Jordan Young and Jaden Sanders. Those guys were freshmen. But you're talking about standouts. So, yeah, standouts, Benny, and he's going to the NFL. Moore, he's going to the NFL. So if you're talking about the harsh reality of these guys looking to get money out of the transfer portal, Sullivan's probably the one. So good point. Money is the most important thing. Yep. Money. That's it. That's it funny. I get why Parker is leaving. Yeah, Parker is leaving because he was in a prime spot to be running back one when Haynes and Marshall got hurt, and Kuzdal, he couldn't beat out Kuzdal. So maybe he got his feelings hurt on that. Kuzdal hit the hole a lot harder. From what I saw and he played, Kuzdal deserved to play over Parker. So if Parker was listening to this, I'd say best of luck. But it didn't look like you got the short end of the stick when it came down to playing time. But again, he's not from around here. It could be somebody promising some stuff, and maybe he's going to get a little money. Keenan says they haven't announced a linebacker coach and DB as of yet. Kyle Whittingham's officially behind the 8 ball. Yeah, I'm not putting him behind the 8 ball yet because he's expected to have his son from Kansas City be the linebackers coach, and he's probably telling the players that's who it's going to be. So while he hasn't announced it publicly, it all signs point to Alex Whittingham being the linebackers coach. And the DB coach, they are working on that. That's it. It's semi-pro now with college football team names. Yeah, I mean it's a lot more like the pros. And I know there's a lot of people that don't like the pros and they love the college game. So now that it's blended in, it's completely understandable why people don't like it, because money part, and you talk so much about the money, it can be distasteful. I get that. Money. Here's more money talk. Here's something about Lamar. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Witt is thinking when it comes down to his defensive backs and special teams. Whittingham told Morgan to take a seat next to Wink. JC saying, be real. I don't know any of that part. Let's get to the end. There may be some breaking news here. Let's see. Yes, Michigan lost to Zeke. That's where we're at right now. Cut from a different cloth does not feel like Whittingham is behind the 8 ball. He's been a head coach for 21 years. He knows what he's doing and can figure it out. Michigan will be just fine. Well, let's get to the Michigan will be just fine. That gets to what we have with Bryce Underwood. And I thought there was a good discussion on the Maize and Blue Review this weekend. It's going to be one of the top topics about Bryce Underwood. Some people were saying it, and we even talked about this on Wednesday. Some people say, well, they should bring in someone to compete with him for next year, which sounds good, but I don't know how realistic that is. Someone, they would say they got to recruit over him. And, you try to get, if Michigan could get a 5-star, the number 1 quarterback recruit for the 28 class, they've got a few guys signed already. They're pretty highly, you would do that. So there seemed to be, there's some people that are wanting to bail on Underwood. You understand that a little bit. For me, you see the 2 or 3 big names that are out there in the transfer portal. I don't see Michigan's names linked to them at all. I think Michigan is trying to bring back Underwood. And just because I thought he was disappointing this year, everything considered being that he was considered to be the greatest quarterback recruit ever. That's something to consider. And that he was 18 years old, didn't have any competition, had all the other stuff working, with the coaches and all of that. Still, all of that considered, he was still disappointing. That doesn't mean that he can't have a good off season, get better from, the cliche, you get better from your freshman to sophomore year. It's true. Sometimes the cliches, but you need to repeat them. I still think that Underwood can be an outstanding quarterback. I don't know if it's as easy as like, well, now Coy Detmer is going to be with him, and he's an analyst and he'll be dedicated. They had guys dedicated. It just didn't work. I think Coy Detmer needs to figure out if he wants Underwood, if they need to work on his fundamentals with his footwork, with his arm angles, and everything that he's going to do so he can deliver the ball solidly from the pocket. Are they going to allow him to continue to throw the ball off of his tippy toes, his back foot, side angle, shuffle in, all the different platforms? I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do, because you got a guy that can do all of these crazy things, but he can't execute to a high level, just delivering the football from the pocket without throwing it to the other team. I don't think there's a lot of Michigan fans think, now that they got a different staff and a dedicated quarterback coach, and he'll be a year older, everything will be fine. Maybe. But having said all of that, I'm with it. I'm with bringing Underwood back and working with him. There's no reason to be dogging him. We know that he needs to put in the work, but from all accounts, he is a hard worker. He is modest. He's not big timing anybody. So to me, I think he would take the coaching. But so, out of everything that's going on, that's number one. And so your opinion, you have to think about that yourself. We can talk about Whittingham's been around the block, and hey, this is what Jason Beck brings to the table, and this is what Coy Detmer, because the Detmer Beck combination is going to be part of the development, if not the entire enchilada now with him. But I will go with Underwood for next year. That's where I'm at with it. This is absolutely true. The quarterback room has no depth. That's true. Michigan Go Blue 1234 asks if I think Whittingham is willing to spend a lot on guys. Well, I think that Whittingham, when you say it's like the pros now, he has his general manager in Sean McGee and other, let's call them bean counters, and they have the money that they're allocating to the different positions. And I know people can, I think Michigan's got top 25 money, if not top 10 money, maybe top 5 money. So if this is an uncapped sport, if Kyle Whittingham, I believe he will spend the money that's given to him. It's not like you could, if they say, hey, here's 20 million, he's like, nah, I don't really want to spend $1 million on a quarterback. Let's save it. Well, you save it for a defensive end. So yeah, I think he's willing to spend a lot on guys, and he's got a lot. So if you've got a lot of money, you're going to spend a lot of money. So yeah, I think he's willing to spend a lot. There's no use saving it. I don't know what the particulars are. It feels like people just, and I get it. Oh, with Ellison, you've got an endless supply of money. You can just throw it around. I don't know about that, but I think they've got top 10 money. That doesn't sound like a hot take. That's not a hot take. So yeah. Do you think we have a top 10 quarterback coach for Underwood now? Go Blue D. Lou T, who's in the house at BYU, had a good secondary with guys getting tons of picks. They did get a lot of picks there. I was noticing that myself. I'm sure we can bring at least a couple of those guys over with Jay Hill. Well, are those guys going to be better than what Michigan has now? That's going to be the thing. Be okay. Fadamaster says Michigan definitely has top 5 money. Well, I don't know. I would say top 10. Again, we got a Ty Detmer. When you got Coy and you got Ty, Coy, known for its prolific pass offense. Yeah, we'll see about that. The word on the Iowa linebacking coaches, I think that they have gone and stayed in the family with Whittingham's kid, who's the linebacker coach from the Chiefs. That's what's expected. I'm just getting a text here that the great safety Teo Johnson is in the portal. Caleb Lomu, offensive tackle. Keep an eye on him. Best young lineman in the Big 12. Boy, do we need him, just a sophomore. That's coming in. Is the Ann Arbor pizza worthy enough to reel in some top transfers? Good question, DJ Pizza. Let's take a few more. We're waiting to see who. That's a good question that we don't know. Every spot is filled, not totally officially, except the secondary coach and special teams coach. Linebacker coach is expected to be Alex Whittingham. All the other ones, I believe, are in. So those are what we're waiting on. Kerry Combs, who was just hired, feels like he, has a shot, but who knows what Kyle Whittingham's thinking about when it comes to his last 2 spots there. Maybe he's holding out for something. '97 style away jerseys, look them up. Let's get them as alternates. Good year. Can't go wrong there. Cut from a different cloth says, how do I think things will play out? I think things are going to play out where Michigan lost Cole Sullivan and, some other guys that, kind of a surprise, but not a surprise like Dotson and Strayhorn. They'll pull a half dozen players in that, just like in recruiting, we'll look at and be like, wow, these guys are great. So I think that's going to play out. That's how it's going to play out. And as far as Underwood, I think Michigan wants him. It sounds like Michigan has already bumped up whatever he was agreed to last year. And so I think I'm expecting him to be part of this. That's where I'm at. And yeah, get him some more weapons. That sounds good. Rip says Fred is a must stay. Well, when it comes down to the analysts and everything else, it's just like the coaches. I like Fred Jackson. I've known his family for 30 years. He is a legend. And, I saw him chatting with Whittingham on the field down there in Orlando. It's like, yeah, bring back Freddie J. But you can have as many analysts as you want. So again, in a non-capped situation, Michigan could have more analysts than anybody else in the country. So maybe that's where they can put their resources with their analysts. All right, last one. Can Whittingham pull a Cignetti and rebuild the team via the transfer portal and get this team college football ready in 1 year? Feel like since Sig did it, every other Big Ten AD is going to ask that of their coach. Well, I don't know about Ward Manuel or whoever will be the next AD probably over the next 6 months. Sorry for people that don't like to hear that or didn't want to go that way, but I think the fans are expecting Cignetti or Whittingham to pull the Cignetti and get Michigan into the college football playoff. I mean, it's Michigan. It's the honeymoon right now for Whittingham. Let's see what he does over this next week. So then when the dust settles, let's see what the roster looks like. And then we're pretty much going to know how things, and then if we play it out and Michigan doesn't make the playoffs, people aren't going to be sitting around talking about how great Kyle Whittingham was and what a great hire he was. So I know they've got a tough schedule, but they've got great resources, and when you have those and you're Michigan and you have a coach that's done this, you're expected to put a college football playoff contender on the field. Bottom line, when it comes to that, that's where I am at. And, I get, you wonder about recruiting when you look at the Mormon Tabernacle, crew that's, put together here or whatever. I'm sorry. I don't know if I don't want to offend anybody. The Mormon Mafia, we see how the Mormon Mafia does, but if it really is, they say, these guys' relationships with when I look at the staff, you look at it, you say, well, where's their connections? I mean, they're going to be, circling Utah. They're going to be bringing a lot of players from Utah in. What about the rest of the country? That's a legitimate question. If they've got the money, let's go. Let's do it. I'll be part of the Tabernacle Choir. I'll be singing. Bring in a bunch of 5 stars. Get me in that Tabernacle Choir. I'll be singing the right tunes. He's singing the Victors. Okay. A bonus tonight is that the Michigan basketball team is back in action, and they are going at Big Ten action tonight. USC will be here following the game, the Michigan basketball postgame live. We're here after every Michigan basketball game, so don't miss out tonight. If you miss it, you can check it out on the podcast or the replay. But right after the game, we take your feedback like we did here. We'll have the Borg out for Ripstar, and it is Southern Cal. They're in town. Good luck to Dusty May and company. They were undefeated in 2025. They're the number 2 team in the country. We'll see how they do tonight. That's going to do it. Why not? With the transfer portal and everything going on with the coaches, sign up. You get the Maize and Blue review plus On Free plus Rivals. That equals a great time, and I guarantee you'll like it. We'll see you tonight after the basketball game. Are we still on? That'll do it. Happy New Year.